if I asked you guys, what is the best-selling BMW? Like me, you'd probably think that it's the 3 Series, being the most iconic BMW with the widest appeal. But it is, in fact, the X3. And that is really a symptom of what the general car market has become. Introduced 20 years ago now in the X-Active concept back in Detroit when auto shows used to be a thing, we've had a number of generations since then, and now since 2023, it has been their best and highest selling car worldwide as well. It's quite telling then that our brand new version here with the G45 X3 is probably the most traditional car that BMW sells in terms of propulsion options available. We've got a petrol, we've got a diesel, we've got a plug-in hybrid, and then in our car that we're reviewing today, some real M muscle with the M50 and its lovely inline-six B58 engine. And more interestingly, there doesn't seem to be an EV in sight for this particular body shape, something that we will discuss today. With the X3 in this new form, it really sets itself apart from other BMWs in other ways as well. For example, its exterior, which has been very controversial and something that I hated. We will talk about that. It's got an incredible interior that we have to unpack as well. So today I'm going to guide you through all of that, including all the variants and what's gone on under the skin, and then we'll head out for a drive in this brand new M Sport M50 X3. So guys, rather than something that you might want to remove before you race, today's sponsor is something that you definitely want to add before you race. And that is RaceChip with their in-house developed tuning boxes and a new pedal box made in Germany and designed to enhance the performance of your car in the best way possible. Let me tell you more about it now. So guys, let's talk about the GTS Black Box first. If you add this to your RS3, for example, you'll get a massive power bump of 60 horsepower and 80 Newton meters, which on a 400 horsepower car is significant. But this is not a one-trick pony. It's not like you just do the tune and that's it. You can cycle between 7 different finely tuned maps through their app on the go. And you can even choose the driving modes and the settings while you're on the go, which is absolutely brilliant. But if you don't want to go for the full performance version, you can also get the RaceChip RS box, which gives you pretty similar performance and all the same configurability that you find in here. And in some countries, you even get a 1-year engine warranty, and they have a huge dealer network available to you should you want to get them to install it. But I should mention, it is plug and play, so it's really easy to just do yourself if you want to as well. Now, this is the other product. It can either be used standalone or alongside the tuning, and this is their XLR throttle response controller. And again, just like the tuning, it can be configured on the go. You can either have a much more race-focused throttle response, or you can have a much more relaxed one that will help you with fuel economy. Again, it's easy to install, plug and play, but this thing is really clever. It even comes with a little touch LCD screen so you can change the modes on the go. You don't need to use the app if you don't want to. And along with the 7 driving modes, you also get smart features like valet mode, limiter mode, anti-theft mode. And again, you can use it either with the tuning or standalone. So a tuning solution and a throttle control solution from RaceChip. Of course, as RBR viewers, I've got you guys a discount of 15%, which is great. Just use the code and you'll get a straight 15% discount. And a huge thanks to you guys for supporting our regular sponsors and to RaceChip for sponsoring this episode. Let's get back to the car. So my friends, when this car was originally announced, I carried with me a dedicated X3 vomit bag on the off chance that I might just scroll past a photo of it on social media. Yeah, ironically, in typical modern BMW fashion now, 6 months later, seeing the car in person, and it might actually be one of my favorite new SUVs on the road. You can't write this stuff, but they always do it, BMW, don't they? And I think I love it, particularly versus the previous generation, which I just didn't really like that much. And we'll go into that today in some detail. So let us begin where this G45 differs from the G01, and let's talk about the variants as well. So this is the most important stuff. Versus the previous gen car, we're about 2 inches longer, we're a little bit wider, but we're not as tall. And I think you can see that very obviously when you look at the car. That extra space obviously been afforded to the interior, as is the way with every modern car, growing slowly to give you more interior space. Now, all of our engines are 48 volt mild hybrids, and this is not something uncommon in new cars. Pretty much every new combustion car has it. But it's great when it comes to engine responsiveness, as you'll see later, and in terms of helping with emissions. So a welcome addition for sure. Then BMW have tinkered with everything to do with the chassis and suspension to make even the standard X3 much more dynamic than its predecessor. So they've, for example, made the chassis mounts much more rigid, they've made the roll bars more rigid, they've tweaked the steering as well to make it more direct. We've got a wider rear track, which is undoubtedly going to help this. And finally, the option of adaptive suspension, which is a huge welcome, because one of the main complaints that buyers had, particularly in the M versions of the previous X3, is how crashy the ride has been. And we will see what that's like because our car here today has that. Then we have something that's been brought over from the 5 Series, which is a near actuator slip limiter. Essentially what that means is that the traction controlling element is closer to where the ESC, etc. is, so you get better traction in every single scenario. We've seen that in the M cars and in the 5 Series, and it seems to be pretty good. And finally, another thing taken from those cars is the integrated braking system, or the IB, which we first saw, I believe, in the M3, and that is also within our new X3 as standard. Interestingly though, for a car that's grown in size, no rear wheel steering, even though its rival in the GLC does have that. We'll see later on whether that's hindered or helped with the drive. Now, BMW rely on the X3, as we said, as a volume car worldwide. So it needs to have an entry point and engines that are accessible in terms of price and the right type of engine. So it's telling them that we have the X320 and the X320D as our first versions, even a diesel, because they know diesel's going to be popular in this. This is a car that will likely tow other things. We need the torque. Diesels, I love them, and I'm glad that we have it in the X3. Now, all of these entry-level cars are X-Drive. They all benefit from your mild hybrid, and they've seen some nice power bumps in regards to that as well. And we have the 8-speed torque converter as standard in terms of our gearbox. And what's also nice is that the price point, at least for modern SUVs, pretty accessible in these entry-level versions as well. So a really nice place for the X3 to start. Get the M Sport package and you'll get the styling on the outside of M Sport and on the inside. You'll also get the boost paddle that we'll talk about later on your steering wheel. You get the M Sport suspension and M Sport steering as option as well. All of this, of course, comes standard on our M50. Now, the most interesting one to me is the plug-in hybrid, partly because I own its competitor in the GLC 300DE. But I think this is a format that's really going to resonate with people this year and going forward, because you get the best of both worlds, particularly when you have a nice meaty 22.7 usable kilowatt battery giving you real world usage of 55 electric miles, which is quite brilliant. You've still got good power, good speed on offer. I think this is going to be a really compelling car going forward, and the price point quite a bit cheaper than its rivals as well. And finally, the main event, which is our car today, the M50, which of course comes with a beautiful inline-six M engine, which is the B58, a wonderful engine that we all love. And it's seen some upgrades, this engine now producing almost 400 horsepower, a nice healthy 0 to 60 of 4.5 seconds. And the engine has seen more than just a tune. We've got updated turbocharging and a host of other changes to make it more modern and more up to date. Now, this engine is also a mild hybrid, so it benefits from a power boost within that figure of about 18 horsepower and a good amount of about 40 Newton meters, and that's thanks to the starter generator that sits within that system. So we're going to get really nice engine responsiveness out of this engine. And of course, that makes this M50 much more powerful than the predecessor, and pretty much the most powerful non-full M Sport car that you can get at the moment. Now, any proper M car has to have a proper diff, so we've got M Sport differential sitting there in the back, which also gives us launch control. We've got the Sport boost paddle inside that we'll talk about later. We've got M Sport suspension. We've got revised steering by M as well. And of course, our car today has the adaptive suspension, which is such an important option. And we'll talk about that when we go out for a drive. Now, the controversial bit, the design. You'll note I don't have my X3 vomit bag with me anymore, because I actually quite like the way this looks. My original complaints when I saw this car is that when you look at it from the rear in the photos, the rear seems really quite top heavy on the back, particularly towards your Hofmeister kink area. But in person, it all just works. And in fact, it really reminds me of things like the XM. Now, I know we don't really like the XM, but there's bits of the XM that I really do like. I do like some elements of the design, and I think it takes the best of those elements and merges them with some more traditional looking BMW design, like a more traditional, although larger grille, the M3 style bonnet, and in fact I think a rear treatment that is so much better than they've ever done on X3 before. I've never liked the rear of the X3. It always looked to me like a car under-designed on purpose to make you buy up to the X5. But now I think this is the first time that the X3, particularly from the rear, just looks fantastic. I have a big complaint on the previous gen where the rear lights to me just looked like a weapon out of Halo, and I could never get it out of my head, and it just looks so weird, whereas the lights on this just looks like an X, which is great. It's kind of X-Drive, and that's what I'm expecting for a light graphic on the rear of these cars. And BMW do describe this car as monolith. Where have we heard that before? We've heard it with 7 Series, we've heard it with 5 Series, we've heard it with XM. And I think it takes bits of all of those. I think it's probably closest related in its treatment to the 5 Series, which is a good thing. I like the way the new 5 looks. And I just think this X3 looks so much better than its fugly predecessor from almost every single angle, and you'll appreciate that more when you see this car rolling on the road later. So design on the front is an interesting one. It's a mix, I think, like I said, of 5 Series, of XM, a bit of 7 Series, that monolith-like design with very kind of sharp edges on your wheel arches, a really aggressive front end, and a big, more traditional shaped BMW grille on the front with that new iconic glow, as they call it, around the grille, which actually it's nice and subtle, and on the road it looks really good while you're driving as well. And those are flanked by 2 new sets of headlights that are very different to what we've had before on X3, and I actually really like them. Again, perhaps they are a bit reminiscent of the 5 Series, but I don't think that's a bad thing. I think the X3 looks really good now from this angle. It's certainly intimidating, and the M Sport DNA is very strong in this with that M3-like bonnet at the top, and just generally the architectural sharpness of this is undeniable. Front 3/4 and sides, you can see the strong front wheel arch. We'll talk about the wheels in a minute. This is of course your M Sport body. You've got a very defined cut under your doors there. Your doors are the aerodynamic ones as we see in 2 Series, etc. And they're nice enough to use. They're better than most manufacturers' aerodynamic door handles. And yeah, I think it now cuts kind of its own shape on the front. It looks good. It's got some character, a bit of XM, etc. But what was more controversial was the rear. I started off not liking the rear end of this car, and now I think it's probably my favorite angle of it. Originally, I thought that this window line just went up too high. But in reality, when you see it in person, it's probably my favorite bit because you have such a nice and strong rear shoulder there that it just works with the higher window line, and then overall that side silhouette that you get is actually very muscular, because then you get a nice muscular front arch and a nice muscular rear arch, and then that concept X-Active style window. But I think this version of the car actually matches that original X3 concept the most in terms of the window, and it looks really good, particularly in the M Sport body, which I think you have to get. Not only is that the one buyers will be looking for, but it just looks the best body of the lot. Then the rear lights, which I think are the best that we've ever had on X3, as I said, and I really love these lights. I think they're the best we've ever had on X3. They look good off and on when you get the lights on. They're good looking set of lights. This is for the first time a car that doesn't look like it's under designed. I like the muscularity of the rear. It reminds me of the new 5 Series, the new M5, the M2. You've got a really defined lower area with your diffuser here, which is nicely cut out. You've got your reflector with a nice black piece of aero trim there, and a nice structured line going through the rear that matches everything. It all just flows really nicely. Even your roof spoiler at the top has a nice sculpted 2-stage look to it, which looks great. Now the thing that's unique to M50 is that it gets the quad pipes at the bottom, which no other version of the X3 gets, so no pipes on the others, and again that sets that apart, and it deserves it because it actually has a pretty nice sound, as you see later when we go out for a drive. Wheels, I'm not mad about these. They don't look fantastic. I think the bi-colour version of these same wheels look better, but they aren't the worst I've ever seen, and on this particular spec end up looking really quite nice. Overall then, while this is similar to other BMWs, it does set itself apart on design. One good example of this is where they've started putting the model name or number on the Hofmeister kink. It's not here. And I think actually the car looks better for it without it. We don't need to have the model name on the C-pillar. As a quick comparison, you look at it even versus the X3M of the previous generation. I just think this is a better looking car. Like, it looks more muscular, it looks just better sorted, it's not as busy. I like it. It's by no means handsome though, this car. I think if you look at the GLC, the new one, it is really a pretty car. It's more traditional. It didn't take as many chances. And because that's Mercedes' bestseller as well, you can understand why. But the X3 kind of sets itself apart from that car as a kind of, it feels to me like a mini XM in a good way. And I think that might help its sales actually. You can, if you want to, get M performance parts for this M50 as well, which includes things like a lower splitter. We've got a really crazy looking wing on the rear, which can be body colored as well. You've got carbon rear pipes if you want them, and then a diffuser treatment as well. It's not the type of car that I would spend money on for M performance parts, I think, but if you want to customize it, BMW have those available for you. And one other interesting thing is, there is in fact a long wheelbase version of the X3 that you can get in China that has wireless charging in the rear. You've got the extended panoramic roof with the lights sitting within it, and that is available for that market as they like to be chauffeured around. So if you're from China, bear that in mind. Now, in the previous X3, we of course had the iX3, and as I said, there is no iX3 planned for this body shape. So what's happening with the EV version? Well, instead, the iX3 will come as part of BMW's new class series of cars, which we've seen previewed now in the concept car for the iX3 and for the i3 and the new 3 Series, which goes back to a more retro design, particularly with the grille treatment, but I think still quite monolithic and similar to this in other areas. But interesting that BMW, who previously championed same body, different propulsion systems, are now going the opposite route and having an iX3 that looks totally different to the combustion version. It's interesting. Let's see how this plays out. Will this one still survive, or will that one end up getting a combustion engine? It's all a bit unclear, because the 3 Series electric that's coming will have a hybrid and combustion version in that same body. So it's getting a little bit confusing. I hope I haven't lost you there. One thing is for sure though, no shortage of mid-size SUVs coming from BMW. Will there be an X3M? I can't imagine why there wouldn't be. They've not held back in any way, BMW M, in the recent years, and that has been a good selling car for them. There's been no spy shot so far, but I imagine that car will come eventually. Now guys, the interior is actually quite an interesting one to unpack, because it's very, very different to what we've had in the past in terms of what X3 has done, and even versus what current BMWs have. Let's check it out. So the interior was probably a bigger shock to us than even the exterior when this car was first unveiled, because where we were expecting in the past, the X3 always basically used the exact same interior as the 3 and the 4 Series, as is industry standard with like GLC using the C-Class interior. Here this time, the X3 has its completely own unique interior, completely different to pretty much everything else in the BMW lineup. And that's actually quite cool, and it comes with some benefits and a few things that a lot of us don't like as well. Let's first start with the entire structure. Now, the only thing that is really similar to other BMWs, I think, is your steering wheel, your screens, and somewhat the iDrive unit, which is all basically standardized. But the actual structure here of the dashboard, and particularly the way that plays with then the door card, is very, very unique to X3, and I really like that structure. It's very different. I like the way that this light comes around on the side here and it plays with the other lights here. The light here is the interactive light bar pulled straight from 5 Series and 7 Series. So really nice that just because this is a X3, it still gets something from the upper echelon of BMW models. Then you have material uses with this kind of fabric material going across the dashboard. I don't mind this, I actually quite like it. It's a bit different and it suits kind of the rugged feel of an off-roader. The materials that aren't nice, however, and this is where I was saying the negatives of where they've gone with this, and I think they should have gone further, is you look at the door handle here, it's this awful plastic. It's horrible. It's a horrible black, cheap plastic. Next to that, you've got the X3 logo, which is fine, but then your vents are controlled with this silly touch thing, which is really difficult to see, as I'm sure you can tell as well. It's lighted up with a green thing, and then you've got the vent on the side, which I don't mind, but it's so confusing, and I'm a techie guy, and I just don't like that. And then there's no space here, despite being a massive door card, for your seat controls, which are then hidden down here. And then the lower you go, the materials here, all a bit plasticky. I don't like that. They maybe could have used even this fabric further down. But the main thing I don't like is the door handles. I mean, just compare that door card element to the GLC. The GLC looks so much more premium, and this just looks really cheap in the materials used. And that, I think, needs to be changed as a priority in a facelift. Apart from that, you've got really good visibility of bonnet. You've got some nice sports seats that hug you well. They're customizable here within our OS 9. And we've got a huge, huge panoramic roof that makes this so airy. It can be closed as well, and that closes with some driving modes automatically. Then let's talk about storage, where I've got another bugbear, okay? We have a couple of USB-C ports here, which is great, but then none in here. So in this last 2 weeks, I've just had a USB-C wire just dangling here, just everywhere, ruining what is otherwise a really nice dashboard. Why not have one or two in here where you can just tuck one away when you don't need it? That's not great placement. Apart from that, storage is okay, but that's just silly. That's not planning well ahead. Right, now let's get to the meat of it. I want to start with the interactive light bar, which is really good. Like I said, it's come from 5 Series and 7 Series, and it adds a layer of interaction literally with the car. So it's things like, for example, you're opening the door, about to leave the car, a car's coming next to the car, and it will warn you with the red lights on there, which is great. It's hazard detection. You turn on your hazard lights, it also does it around the car as well. You jump in the car and you get the whole welcome screen thing, which is really cool. Interestingly, you can choose a different type of welcome. However, it doesn't give you any preview in the system of what that looks like. They're just called various different weird names. Unlike Audi, when you choose a different light graphic in their car, they'll show you a preview of it. I think that's, again, that needs to be sorted, because I don't know what the other ones are like, and who really cares enough to go and try each one? Another really cool part of the lights is when you put your phone in for charging, it gives you a nice little animation in there. And it's little things like this that have endeared me to the light bar. Then, of course, the biggest thing that changes with the lights is the ambience of the car, particularly when you're going into driving modes. Let's talk about driving modes. For example, now, we're in personal, which is your default mode, which you can change your default modes. I'll talk about that in a minute. Let's go into sport, and then you'll see the BMW M colours will flush through the interior and take over, and suddenly you've gone from a standard X3 into an M50. And I really like that animation element. What's nice is in the driving modes, you also get animated wallpapers here, as well as a nice kind of background and a zero layer if you want to have that while driving. So I like all of that. Now, the driving modes themselves are pulled from 5 Series and 7 Series. There's a ton of them. Let's see, there's about 7, I think? Yes, there's 7. We go from personal, which is basically comfort. You have sport, efficient, which I've used a lot, expressive, which I've never even touched. We've got relax, which then closes the panoramic roof, which is quite nice. Digital art, again, we saw in 7 Series with the purple theme. And then an interesting one called silent, which gets rid of all of the ambient lighting as well, if you just want to have, you know, literally just a bit of silence. Now, when you go into sport, the good thing is that you've got individual settings for your drivetrain, driving dynamics, steering, damping. All of that can be set as it should be in an M car. Though what's interesting is you can choose the mode that the car starts in when you start the car from default, and it can be basically any of them, as long as it's not sport. I mean, talk about nannying. Let us choose. Maybe we all like sport and we want to start in sport. I mean, this is an M50. EU regs probably influencing that decision. But overall, I love the way that the modes change, the ambience, the way the ambient lighting changes throughout the car. That's a really cool element. My only bugbear with the driving modes is the placement of the My Modes button, which you basically have to, while you're driving, dislocate your arm to kind of touch it or fish for it in this. I like the iDrive unit, but that is just, it's hard to spot. And something like this that is used so frequently by the driver, it's criminal to have it here as a touch button. It should be front and center, either on the steering wheel, like AMG does and Porsche do, or somewhere over here where I can press My Modes and then go and choose the driving mode if I have to use the bloody touchscreen, which I don't want to do. It should be front and center. That's a bad decision. Have it on the steering wheel. That's my opinion. Let's talk about the steering wheel. Straight out of the M5, nice big paddles like the M3 and the M4. You see you've got your boost pedal here, which comes with the M Sport package, and we'll talk about how that is when we're driving. The steering wheel is lovely, flat bottomed. It's got bulk in all the right places. It's nice and modern, nice metal spoke at the bottom with the M logo, red 12 o'clock marker at the top, and all of the buttons very easy to use in reality when it comes to setting driving assistance and then playing with, say, your content in your driver zone in front. And so much customization available, not just in one mode, but every single driving mode that I talked you through has that customization, which is great. BMW done really well here, allowing you to make these screens exactly what you want them to be. And not only these screens, but also the HUD up top, which gives you a ton of options. Now, as we start to talk about the OS 9, which is a really good OS, let's talk about this iDrive unit here, where you've got your little gear shifting toggle, which is okay. I would prefer a large gear shifter because I'm a traditionalist, but it works well enough. You pull down for sport mode as well, which annoyingly you have to do every time that you come out of reverse, which is silly. But the main thing is you've got the iDrive controller, which makes everything so much safer while you're driving. I was really annoyed to find that in the newest BMW interior concept that they completely got rid of that. I was confident that they were going to keep it in their new class cars, and it seems like they're going to bin it, which would be criminal, because I've applauded them so many times for keeping this, and they need to keep it. It keeps things safe. You don't need to use a touchscreen all the time. You've got your typical buttons of navigation, telephone, etc. available to you there, and then the driving assistance button that you can tap and then mess around with the driving assistance bits as well, which is good that it's set there for you. Then OS 9 itself, really easy to use. You've got your zero layer here, which has got your home button. You can go straight into your apps as well, which either you have the list of all of the apps available, or you have the entertainment apps, for example, like the Air Console games, which is now a thing, so you can play games while the car is stationary. And then what I use a lot, which is the vehicle apps, where you can just jump in, check out the live vehicle view, which is nice. You've got that adaptive content in there. You can spin the car around, as we love doing in the BMW cars. And then there's even a terrain view, so BMW matching Mercedes with, you know, their off-road view there. Not quite as good as that car in the GLC, but nice to see that in here. Another part of the zero layer is your climate control. That is always there. And then if you tap the temperature, you can choose your steering wheel, seat heating, and seat ventilation as well in there. So that's always available to you. Pull down, you can set your shortcuts as well that you use most often, which is really good. And of course, you've got Apple CarPlay in there, immediately accessible. One thing I really couldn't find, and it took me ages to find, was the light switch was actually hidden here in this little toggle. So yeah, that was a weird one. And as of filming right now, I still haven't found where the traction control button is, or in the system, which is a bit annoying. Too well hidden. Despite that, it's still one of the best in the market, and in these 2 weeks, I have enjoyed using it. This is a very spacious rear end, okay? I'm 5'10", and I've got tons of space here, tons of leg room, lots of arm room as well. It's a spacious, and you would hope so, considering the car has grown 2 inches, but it feels, you know, akin to what I remember X5 being as well. So it's nice and spacious. I like the door card. I wish that they'd put the light here as well, because the shape of this is exactly the same, but the only place you get ambient lighting is in this little cubby hole here. But what is nice, you do get rear blinds, which is lovely. It's nice to see that. You've got a full-on climate control area over here, which is great. Frustratingly, they've got a nice manual control for the vents here, unlike the front, but that all works well. And the best thing is the massive panoramic roof, which is all the way up to here, uninterrupted, and it brings so much light and airiness into this interior. It is brilliant, really, really good. Then we have the boot as well. Right, let's check out the boot. I do hate this chunky key that BMW do. It's not even the key, I think it's the key cover that's always on the press cast. Too big. Anyway, let's get this boot open. So this is a decent sized boot. It's larger than the predecessor. You've got your luggage cover here. Sorry about that. You can see I've got my small to medium sized pram sitting very happily in there, still with tons of space. Of course, you can split fold those seats as well. There's an unadulterated view for you, and you've got a bit more storage underneath here as well. So space-wise, looking good, a bit more than the predecessor. It's going to be nice and practical. So guys, that's the interior. Now let's head off and see what this top dog of the X3 series is like on the road. Now the first thing you feel as soon as you tap the pedal of this car is just how responsive the power delivery is. And it actually feels EV responsive, and it's all thanks to the mild hybrid element of this car. It's so confidence boosting immediately, and that's before we've even dialed into the sport mode of this car. And the other thing you feel, despite our awful UK roads here, is just how comfortable the suspension is. It's so far away from the previous X3, and of course this is for an M Sport model, so this is our adaptive suspension in play as well. But now let us actually get into sport mode. Don't like using that modes button, but it's fine. B58, we're getting more sound now. Iconic Sounds is on. Of course, this amplifies your engine sound. The B58 is not an engine that would need sound amplification if it wasn't for the EU noise regulation laws, which is a shame, but I don't hate it. But on or off, the B58 sounds lovely, and like I said, this is such a responsive engine. Any part of the rev range, you got immediate power. There's been no point where any opportunity that was available for me as a driver was not immediately available, thanks to the seemingly limitless amount of grip and power that this car has to offer. It just feels so great. And that's particularly, I feel, in these muggy winter months where there's seldom anything that this thing won't leave for dust. And in that sense, in terms of speed available, real world speed is more than enough. 400 horsepower doesn't sound a lot, but it's all about usable power. How much of that can you access? And in this car, you can access a lot of it all of the time, which is a nice feeling to have. Right, now let's check out what this can do with a launch. So in the end, a very respectable 4 seconds to 60, which is damn impressive for just an entry-level M model. And it feels that quick too. And the boost pedal is interesting. Essentially, it's your downshift, right? Because you're pulling your left paddle. But the nice thing is you do get that full kick down experience without having to kick down. It is a replacement for kick down essentially, but I think its positioning as your left paddle actually does make a bit of sense. So I don't mind it. I thought in theory it was silly, but it does work. It gets really quick sometimes, and for the type of driving that this car is going to be used for, I think the power is absolutely perfect, and I like the level that it's at. In terms of the 8-speed torque converter, no real surprises here. It's quick enough to not discourage you from using it, but never fast enough that you would think it's like, you know, a proper M car. So exactly where you would see an M Sport model like this position. So that is, again, as expected. Now, the thing that really surprised me about this car was the handling, where I was expecting a roly-poly SUV despite being an M Sport model. The steering feel is nice. It's actually pretty damn communicative on that front end. All of those rigidity things helping here. And in that way, I like the steering. It's definitely better than previous X-Drive offerings. And that gives you confidence, so you can like come in harder. You've got your M Sport brakes to slow you down, and then plenty of power to come out of the corner. So yeah, the handling definitely surprised me. So I like the steering feel. It can get a bit numb when you transition between turns, but honestly speaking, pretty damn good for an M Sport SUV. That's not the X3M. I'm so quite surprised by that. And the sound from the B58, you get some artificial burbles and pops, which makes it sound actually very deep and quite menacing. I really like this aspect because it adds so much to this car, particularly versus GLC 43, its main rival, which, that 4-cylinder engine, you know, we all hate it. This is nice and exciting. But I say nice and exciting in the framework of this is 2025, noise regulations, and no, it doesn't sound as loud as the previous version. But look, this does not sound bad. It sounds very nice, I think. Now I don't really miss the rear wheel steering that the GLC had either. I think the rigidity that they've added here, those changes to the chassis, doing a good enough job. So our sport mode is perfect for those occasions when you need to open things up, you want to have some fun, a bit more dynamism, stiffer suspension. It's great. It's like the Goldilocks in terms of power as well, where you have just enough usable power that you need. In terms of our other driving modes then, and I hate using this My Modes button, they're carryover from 5 Series and 7 Series. So we've got personal, which I prefer to call like your comfort mode. We've got efficient in here, which I've used quite a lot. I've used efficient and sport mainly because either on fuel consumption or I want to use the power. That's the way I look at things. And the nice thing about going into either efficient or comfort is that the adaptive suspension becomes brilliant. You forget that this is an M Sport SUV. It all settles down. The car is of course quieter as well, but it's not about the quietness. It's more about how well the adaptive suspension is handling the bumps. This is where money needs to be spent on the X3. In this way, it feels so different to when you have the sport mode on, and I'm sure you guys can see it as well. It's all calm. It deals with the horrible roads that we have in the UK really, really well. So much better, like I said, than the previous X3. And my last experience with X3 was in fact the X3M, which of course much more dynamic car, you would think, but you know what? This actually handles the dynamism bit pretty well. So nice and smooth, nice and cosseting, great suspension. And this is the side of the M Sport Daily that's really important. It needs to have this so that it can do your daily tasks before you go into sport mode and open things up. And the other side of it is longer journeys. This is actually very good as well. Now, the other great thing about the comfort side is we've got the steering assist, or the self-driving as I like to call it here, which is such a boon when it's for motorway driving, longer distance driving. I mean, the mileage you get in this car is pretty damn good as well for a performance car. So all of these things linking together, along with that lovely interior, apart from some of the materials. It can also do things like the lane change for you as well. So up to date in terms of BMW's driving assistance systems, which is good. You want the X3 to be right up there, considering it's the best seller. So I like that element, and I've enjoyed that in this last 2 weeks, that it's a comfortable car, not just for those short bursts, but good for longer journeys as well, and nice and quiet. The big takeaway for me on M50 is just how good this is, even in comparison to the previous X3M. The previous X3M, very much a blunt instrument. Yes, very fast, the X3M competition, but despite the improvements to the suspension, it was still an uncomfortable, crashy car. It was a one-dimensional vehicle. This seems to have the best of both worlds. You've got the dynamism when you need it, tons of speed, and honestly, this 400 horsepower and all the torque that you have with this mild hybrid really makes this car feel quick. This engine with the mild hybrid setup, with tons of torque and all that engine responsiveness, just feels so quick. It never feels underpowered. But this, like I said, gives you the best of both worlds, really good speed, nice deep engine note with the iconic sounds, but still nice and enjoyable. And then when do you want to calm things down? You can calm things down and use it as a normal X3. So in conclusion, this M50 I think is one of the best M Sport models they've made in recent years. Fantastically quick, good handling, a great interior and exterior combo. My only complaint is I wish I could hear more of that lovely B58 engine, more of its natural sound, all thanks to regs. But apart from that, this is the Swiss Army knife for, I think, almost any lifestyle. It will do everything you need, from the daily tasks to the performance orientated, having a bit of fun. I really want to try the plug-in hybrid, the 30e, because as I said, I own the equivalent Mercedes, and I'm excited to see, will that give you even more daily usability, a bit more cost saving, but similar in terms of dynamics and enough power to use on the road. We will see perhaps another day with that car. We'll see if an even crazier X3M comes one day. I really want to try the plug-in because I'm more interested in the daily ability of an SUV. So we will see, but I hope this review has been really useful if you're considering a new X3 in general. So if you've enjoyed this episode of RBR, please do like and subscribe as always, and I'll see you guys next time.